The blood hadn't dried yet when the camera phone started clicking. 47 angles capturing the same moment, a black man in a $2,000 hoodie being dragged across LAX Terminal 7 like cargo, temple split open, wrists zip-tied so tight the plastic bit through skin. The footage would hit 8 million views before the plane even reached cruising altitude. But that moment, the one frozen in pixels and outrage, wasn't where this story began. It started 3 weeks earlier, in a private room at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where Marcus Coleman's heart stopped beating for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. The surgical team would later describe it as a widowmaker, the kind of cardiac event that leaves families planning funerals instead of recovery timelines. Triple bypass, emergency intervention, the works. When Marcus finally opened his eyes 72 hours post-op, the first thing he saw wasn't his 3 adult children. It was his mother, Ruby Coleman, 78 years old and 400 miles away in Houston, whose face filled the tablet screen propped on his bedside table because she couldn't afford the flight to Los Angeles. She called every morning at 6, every evening at 8, 3 weeks straight. His children called once. A conference call on speakerphone, voices echoing with the hollow quality of people who'd rather be anywhere else. Marcus Jr., 28, partner track at a white shoe firm in Chicago, had a deposition. Diana, 26, fresh out of medical school, couldn't handle hospitals after hours. Samuel, 23, didn't offer an excuse, just silence and the click of a disconnected line. Ruby never asked why her grandchildren didn't visit. She knew her son carried that particular wound deep enough already. 3 weeks post-surgery, Marcus stood in his Palo Alto estate, $47 million worth of glass and steel overlooking the bay, staring at the scar bisecting his chest. The surgeons had done clean work, textbook, the kind of precision that cost $400,000 even with insurance. He traced the raised tissue with fingers that still trembled from medication, felt his rebuilt heart pumping blood through borrowed arteries, and made a decision that would destroy 6 lives and transform an industry. He was going to fly commercial, not on the Gulfstream G650 sitting in a private hangar at San Jose, not on the NetJet's fractional ownership he'd purchased 3 years ago. United Airlines Flight 2847 Los Angeles to Houston, departing 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday afternoon. Premium economy, seat 12C, $847 charged to a credit card that could have bought the entire aircraft without triggering a fraud alert. His assistant Susan had questioned the decision exactly once. "Sir, given your recent surgery, wouldn't the jet be more appropriate? Medical considerations. Book the ticket, Susan." "Mr. Coleman, I have to advise, I own $847 million in United stock, 14.7%. I've been tracking their discrimination complaints for 18 months. 47 incidents, all people of color, 8.3 million in sealed settlements. I want to see if the data matches reality." Susan had gone quiet. 20 years as his executive assistant meant she recognized that tone, the one that preceded a Tech Medics product launch or a hostile takeover bid, the one that meant someone, somewhere, had made a catastrophic miscalculation. "I'll book coach if you prefer, sir. More authentic. Premium economy. I want the seat I'm paying for. And Susan, pack the Loro Piana hoodie, the cashmere one. The $2,400 hoodie that looks like it came from Target? That's the one." Marcus packed the rest himself. Brunello Cucinelli jeans, $1,200 of Italian denim that could pass for Levi's in airport lighting. Vintage Rolex Daytona on his wrist, $240,000 of Swiss precision hidden under a frayed sleeve. The backpack was deliberately tattered, purchased from a thrift store in Oakland for $7. Inside, contracts worth $50 million, his medical clearance paperwork, and 6 prescription bottles with instructions that read like a pharmacology textbook. He looked at himself in the mirror. 42 years old, black, dressed like a graduate student. carrying documentation that declared him a recent heart surgery patient cleared for travel by one of the nation's top cardiologists. Perfect. The drive to LAX took 90 minutes in Tuesday traffic. Marcus piloted his own car, a 5-year-old Honda Accord he kept for occasions requiring invisibility. The valet at his building had looked confused when Marcus asked for it instead of the Bentley. Old money habits. His father had taught him that real wealth whispered while poverty shouted, but Marcus had learned a corollary his father never mentioned. Society treated whispers from black men like threats. He'd find out just how right he was in approximately 4 hours. Los Angeles International Airport on a Tuesday afternoon was controlled chaos. TSA lines snaking through pre-check, families corralling children, business travelers performing the choreographed dance of laptop removal and belt replacement. Marcus joined the premium check-in line at United, boarding pass already loaded on his phone, and waited. The agent was white, female, somewhere in her 50s with hair shellacked into submission and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Her name tag read Patricia. Tag read. Marcus stepped forward. Patricia glanced at his phone, then at his face, then back at his phone with a slowness that felt deliberate. "Sir, this line is for premium passengers. I have a premium economy ticket." Marcus kept his voice level, neutral, the tone he'd perfected in boardrooms where being the only black face meant every word carried extra weight. Patricia's fingers moved across her keyboard with theatrical precision. Click, click, pause, click. "This doesn't look right. I'm sorry. Your ticket, something's off." Marcus had checked in online 4 hours ago. The boarding pass had loaded without issue. His frequent flyer number, platinum status from the flights he took before buying the G650, was clearly visible. "What specifically seems incorrect?" Patricia's smile tightened. "I need to verify with a supervisor." The white man ahead of Marcus, khakis and a polo carry-on from Toomey, had been processed in 40 seconds. Patricia had asked exactly 2 questions, checking bags in aisle or window. Marcus watched the clock on the departure board tick forward. 2 minutes. 5. 8. Behind him, a woman in yoga pants shifted her weight and sighed loudly. A businessman checked his Rolex with the aggressive wrist flick of someone whose time was more valuable than everyone else's. Marcus felt their eyes, felt the familiar heat of being seen as obstacle rather than human. Patricia returned with a supervisor. Different woman, younger, same practiced smile. "Mr. Coleman, is it?" "That's correct. We just need to verify a few things. Standard procedure." "Of course." Marcus pulled out his driver's license. The supervisor compared the photo to his face with an intensity usually reserved for passport control in hostile nations. "And you're flying to Houston, as indicated on my boarding pass. Purpose of travel?" Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. The white passengers ahead of him hadn't been asked their purpose. Neither had the ones behind him. Patricia had opened a second podium, routing them around the delay Marcus represented. "Visiting family. How long will you be staying?" 2 days. The supervisor typed, paused, typed again. Somewhere behind her, a printer whirred to life. "1 moment, sir." 12 minutes. Marcus counted them. 12 minutes for a transaction that should have taken 30 seconds. When Patricia finally returned with his boarding pass, physically printed despite him already having the digital version, her smile had the sharp edge of victory. "You're all set, Mr. Coleman, gate 47B. They'll be boarding in about 90 minutes. Marcus took the paper. "Thank you." Walking away, he felt their eyes following him, heard the whispered conversation that probably started with, "Can you believe?" and ended with assumptions about affirmative action, diversity hires, or whatever narrative made his presence in premium economy feel like theft rather than purchase. His phone buzzed. Text from Susan. "How's the experiment going?" Marcus typed back, Data point 1 confirmed, moving to security. TSA pre-check should have been simple. Marcus had global entry, clear. Every expedited screening program that money and background checks could provide. He walked through the priority lane, placed his laptop and medical bag in separate bins, stepped through the metal detector when prompted. The alarm didn't sound. The TSA agent, white, male, early 40s with the build of someone who spent weekends at the gym, held up a hand anyway. "Sir, step aside, please. Random additional screening." Random. Marcus glanced at the 5 passengers processed before him, all white, none selected. He looked at the 3 behind him, 2 white, 1 Asian. They flowed through like water, arms out to the side. The pat-down was thorough, aggressive, hands running down his ribs, his legs, his waistband with pressure that spoke to something other than security protocol. The agent's partner, a younger woman who at least had the decency to look uncomfortable, unpacked his medical bag. 6 prescription bottles. She lined them up like evidence. "What are these for?" "Heart surgery. I have documentation. I'm going to need to see that." Marcus pulled out the folder. Cardiology discharge summary, medication list, letter from Dr. Sarah Mendez clearing him for air travel with specific instructions about cabin pressure, hydration, and the need for extra legroom due to circulation concerns. The female agent read it, looked at Marcus, looked at her partner. "It's legitimate. Recent triple bypass." The male agent wasn't satisfied. "We still need to verify." "Verify what exactly?" Marcus kept his tone even, but something in his voice made the female agent meet his eyes. She saw it then. The exhaustion, the scar tissue visible at his collar, the slight tremor in his hands that came from beta blockers, and the body's ongoing negotiation with trauma. "Jake, he's clear." Jake wasn't convinced. "Supervisor needs to review. He's a 3-week post-op cardiac patient with global entry and medical documentation. He's clear." The standoff lasted 10 seconds. Then Jake stepped back, gestured Marcus forward with the clipped movement of someone who'd been denied a victory. 20 minutes. From entry to exit, 20 minutes for a pre-check screening that should have taken 3. Marcus collected his belongings, repacked his medications with hands that wanted to shake but wouldn't give Jake the satisfaction, and headed for the gate. His phone buzzed again. Text from a number he didn't recognize. "Uncle Marcus?" Then, "It's Jordan. We see you on the tarmac. Why are you flying United?" Marcus stopped walking, turned, scanned the terminal until he found what he was looking for. The private aviation entrance half a mile south. Too far to see clearly, but he knew what was there, knew who was there. The Coleman brothers, Jordan Jr., Isaiah, and Elijah, 8 years old. Orphaned 18 months ago when their parents, Marcus's closest friends, Dr. Jordan Coleman and Dr. Rachel Coleman, died in a car accident on Pacific Coast Highway. Emancipated minors with a $2.1 billion trust fund from their parents' biotech patents. Marcus's godchildren, his legal wards, the closest thing to his own children who'd actually shown up when it mattered. He typed back, "Taking the commercial flight. Long story. You boys okay?" "We're fine. Jet's fueling. Are you okay? We saw you at security. Looked like they were hassling you." Marcus glanced back at the checkpoint. From the private aviation terminal with the right angle and maybe binoculars, the boys could have seen the whole thing. "I'm fine. Just some extra screening. Part of the plan." "What plan?" "I'll explain later. Have a safe flight, Jordan. Tell your brothers I love them." "Love you too, Uncle Marcus. Be careful." Marcus pocketed his phone and continued to gate 47B. The plan was simple. Document the discrimination, gather evidence, use his position on United's board to force systematic change from the inside. Clean, corporate, professional. He had no intention of revealing his identity unless absolutely necessary. No dramatic confrontations. Just quiet observation and meticulous documentation. That plan would be dead within 2 hours. Gate 47B was standard issue. Rows of connected seating facing floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the tarmac. The usual mixture of business travelers in rumpled suits, families negotiating the complex logistics of small children and carry-ons, elderly passengers settling in for the wait. Marcus found a seat in the back corner. Good vantage point. Minimal attention. He pulled out his tablet, opened the file Susan had prepared. 18 months of data, 47 documented incidents of discrimination on United flights. The pattern was surgical in its precision. Black passengers denied boarding, moved to worse seats subjected to additional scrutiny, removed from aircraft for disruptive behavior that white passengers engaged in without consequence. The settlements told the story the company tried to hide. $8.3 million over 5 years. Non-disclosure agreements on all of them. No admission of wrongdoing. No policy changes. Just money exchanged for silence and the machine rolling forward. Marcus knew some of the names. Dr. Raymond Foster, retired Army colonel, removed from first class despite a valid ticket, handcuffed for aggressive behavior after asking for water. 400,000 settlement. Kenya, Washington. Tech entrepreneur told to breastfeed her infant in the bathroom because people like you should do that privately. 275,000. The list went on. Each incident a small violence. Each settlement a band-aid on a gunshot wound. His phone buzzed. Text from Ruby. "What time does your flight land, baby? I'm making your favorite." Marcus smiled. His mother's gumbo, the kind that took 2 days to make right with roux dark as Mississippi soil and spices that told the story of 3 generations. She'd started it yesterday, probably before dawn, even though her arthritis made stirring that pot an act of will. "Land at 7:43 p.m. your time. Don't go to any trouble, Mama." "Hush. You just had your chest cracked open. You need real food, not that California nonsense." "Yes, ma'am." "And Marcus, I'm proud of you for coming home. I know it's hard with the kids not—" She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Marcus knew what she wasn't saying. "I know it hurts that they didn't visit. I know you're wondering what you did wrong as a father. I know you're flying commercial to Houston instead of taking your jet because some part of you still needs to prove you earned your place in the world. I love you, Mama. Love you more, baby. See you tonight." Marcus put the phone away and watched the gate area fill. Boarding would start in 30 minutes. He took one of his pills, the beta blocker that kept his rebuilt heart from racing, and waited. That's when he saw her. Senior flight attendant, white, late 30s with blonde hair pulled into a bun so tight it looked painful and a smile that had the artificial quality of customer service performed under duress. Her name tag read Diane Ashford. She was speaking with the gate agent, gesturing towards something on a computer screen. When her eyes swept the waiting area and landed on Marcus, the look lasted maybe 2 seconds. But Marcus had spent 42 years reading those looks, cataloging them, understanding the mathematics of assumption that happened in the space between seeing a black face and deciding what it meant. Diane's expression cycled through surprise assessment and something that looked like disapproval before settling back into professional neutrality. She said something to the gate agent. Both women looked at him. Marcus felt it then. The thing his father had warned him about decades ago. "Son, you can have all the money in the world, doesn't matter. Some people will always see the color before they see the credentials." His father had been a postal worker, 40 years carrying mail through Houston summers, saving every dollar, making sure Marcus had tutors and test prep and the Princeton education that launched everything else. Dead now for 15 years. But his voice still clear as morning. "Don't let them make you small, Marcus. Don't let them take up space in your head." Too late for that, Dad. The boarding announcement came through. "Ladies and gentlemen, we'll begin boarding United Flight 2847 to Houston. First class and our Premier Platinum members, welcome aboard. Marcus watched the first-class passengers flow through, mostly white, mostly male, mostly carrying briefcases and the air of people accustomed to priority treatment. One black man in the group, late 50s, suit that screamed money, wedding ring that screamed more money. He nodded at Marcus in passing. That nod, the one that said, "I see you, brother," the one that carried generations of code switching and twice the work for half the credit, and we both know what this is. Marcus nodded back. Group 2, Premium Economy, welcome aboard. Marcus stood, grabbed his backpack, joined the line. Diane Ashford was scanning boarding passes at the gate, her smile bright and automatic for each passenger until Marcus stepped forward. Boarding pass, please. He held out his phone. She scanned it. The system beeped confirmation. But instead of waving him through, Diane's smile faltered. 12C Premium Economy. That's correct. And this is your ticket? Something cold settled in Marcus's chest. Yes. Is there a problem? No problem. Just making sure. You can board. But her eyes said different. Her eyes said, are you sure you can afford this? Did you steal this ticket? Do you belong here? Marcus walked down the jet bridge with his heart rate climbing. The beta blocker was supposed to prevent this, was supposed to keep his pulse steady, his rebuilt cardiovascular system from staging a rebellion against stress. But chemistry could only do so much when fury and humiliation were mixing in his bloodstream like competing medications. The aircraft was a 737-800, standard configuration. First class in front, premium economy in the middle, regular economy stretching back like steerage. Marcus found 12C, exit row, extra legroom, the seat he'd specifically selected because his cardiologist had been explicit about circulation and the need to move his legs during flight. He stowed his backpack, settled into the seat, pulled out his pill organizer and took the afternoon dose, beta blocker, blood thinner, statin, ACE inhibitor, the full cocktail of pharmaceutical intervention that kept his rebuilt heart functional. That's when Diane Ashford appeared. Sir, can I see your boarding pass again? Marcus looked up. I already showed it at the gate. I know. I just need to verify something. He pulled out his phone, showed her the digital pass. She studied it with the intensity of someone looking for counterfeit watermarks. Premium Economy, 12C. She said it slowly, carefully, like she was translating from a foreign language. Is there an issue? Marcus kept his voice level, but other passengers were starting to notice. The man across the aisle, white, 50-something, polo shirt and khakis, had paused in his own settling in to watch. No issue. Just unusual for... Diane stopped herself, rearranged her features back into customer service mode. Just making sure you're comfortable, sir. She walked away. Marcus exhaled. The man across the aisle caught his eye, shook his head slightly. Sympathy, or maybe just acknowledgement of awkwardness witnessed. The flight filled. Business travelers claiming their territory, families negotiating seat assignments, the controlled chaos of boarding. Marcus watched it all, feeling the exhaustion that came from being on guard constantly, from calculating every word, every gesture, every facial expression for the hidden math of how black men were supposed to behave in spaces that didn't expect them. Then the late boarder arrived. White woman, early 50s, expensive clothing in that way that screamed country club and charity galas. Her carry-on was Louis Vuitton, Louis. Her jewelry was understated in the way that only real wealth achieved. She scanned the cabin with the air of someone surveying a disappointing restaurant, and her eyes landed on seat 12C. On Marcus, she approached. Excuse me, I think there's been a mistake. Marcus looked up. I'm sorry. This is my seat, 12C. I always sit in 12C. I'm diamond status. I have the boarding pass for this seat. The woman, her name tag from some conference still clipped to her blazer, read Amanda Whitmore, pursed her lips. There must be some error. I specifically requested this seat when I booked. Ma'am, I checked in 4 hours ago. The seat was assigned to me. Amanda's expression shifted, hardened. Look at... I mean, are you sure you're supposed to be in premium economy? There it was. The thing she hadn't said, but Marcus heard anyway. You don't look like you belong here. I'm quite sure. Amanda turned, scanned the cabin, found Diane Ashford and waved her over with the imperious gesture of someone accustomed to service staff jumping. Diane arrived with her professional smile already in place. How can I help you, Mrs. Whitmore? This gentleman is in my seat. I'm in my assigned seat, Marcus corrected, keeping his tone neutral even as his heart rate climbed. Even as he felt the eyes of everyone nearby turning toward the disturbance. Diane checked her tablet. Mr. Coleman has seat 12C. It's his assigned seat. Well, can you move him? I'm diamond status. I always sit here for medical reasons. I have anxiety. I need the exit row. Marcus watched this play out with the sick certainty of someone who'd seen this script before. Diane looked at Marcus, looked at Amanda, made her calculation in the space of 2 heartbeats. Sir, would you mind moving to accommodate our diamond member? We have a seat available in 27B. No! The word came out harder than Marcus intended. I paid full price for this specific seat. I have medical clearance that requires extra legroom due to recent heart surgery. I'm not moving. Diane's smile went rigid. Sir, I'm trying to be accommodating. I'm sure you are. But I'm a paying passenger in my assigned seat. Mrs. Whitmore can take the available seat in 27B if she'd like. Amanda's face flushed. Do you know who I am? My husband is Senator George Whitmore. I'm not sitting in a middle seat in the back of the plane. Then I suppose you'll need to take a different flight. Wrong answer. Marcus saw it in the way Diane's expression shifted, in the way she glanced toward the front of the cabin where the cockpit door stood open, in the way her hand moved toward the phone that connected to the flight deck. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to follow crew instructions. If you refuse, I'll need to call the captain. Call him. Marcus heard the edge in his own voice, felt his rebuilt heart hammering despite the medication. But some lines couldn't be uncrossed. Some humiliations couldn't be swallowed one more time. I'm not moving from a seat I paid for to accommodate someone who thinks her status matters more than my medical needs. Diane's mouth tightened. One moment. She walked toward the cockpit. Marcus felt the cabin's attention like weight, felt the judgment, the assumption, the narrative being written in real time. Difficult passenger, aggressive, probably on something. Look at how he's dressed, look at... The man across the aisle leaned over. Hey man, for what it's worth, you're right, that's your seat. Thanks. I'm a lawyer, civil rights work. If this goes sideways, I'm Lawrence Sinclair. He handed Marcus a card. That's my cell on the back. Marcus took the card, felt something shift in his chest that wasn't cardiac distress, felt witnessed, validated, seen. Then the captain emerged from the cockpit. Captain Roland Thatcher was exactly what central casting would order. Late 50s, white, silver hair, the kind of pilot who'd probably spent 30 years in the job and considered the aircraft his personal fiefdom. He had the bearing of military service and the expression of someone whose authority had rarely been questioned. He stopped at row 12, looked at Diane, looked at Amanda, looked at Marcus with eyes that had already made their assessment. What seems to be the problem here? Diane spoke first. Captain Thatcher, this passenger is refusing to follow crew instructions. Mrs. Whitmore requested her usual seat for medical reasons. I'm in my assigned seat, Marcus interrupted. With medical documentation requiring extra legroom due to recent cardiac surgery, Mrs. Whitmore wants my seat because of her status. I declined to move. Thatcher's expression didn't change. Ma'am, I understand Mrs. Whitmore is a valued diamond member. We need to accommodate her needs. I'm a paying passenger with medical requirements. Sir, on my aircraft I make the final decisions about passenger placement. I'm instructing you to move to seat 27B to accommodate another passenger's medical needs. Her anxiety isn't, are you refusing to follow crew instructions? The question landed like a trap snapping shut. Marcus understood the calculus instantly. Refuse and be removed. Comply and surrender the principle. Either way, the system won. Lawrence Sinclair stood up. Captain, I'm an attorney. This gentleman has the assigned seat and medical documentation. Forcing him to move while accommodating another passenger's unverified claim creates liability. Sir, I need you to sit down, or you'll also be removed from this aircraft. Marcus saw it then. The pattern, the script, the machinery of discrimination that didn't need slurs or obvious hatred, just authority applied selectively, rules enforced asymmetrically. The benefit of doubt extended in one direction only. I'm not moving. Marcus's voice was steady, final. Thatcher's jaw tightened. Then I'm calling airport security to remove you from this flight. For sitting in my assigned seat? For refusing to follow crew instructions and creating a disturbance? I haven't raised my voice, haven't threatened anyone. I'm simply declining to give up a seat I paid for. Security is on their way. You can leave voluntarily or be removed. Your choice. That's when Marcus heard it. The sound of running feet in the jet bridge. Small feet. Young voices raised in panic. 3 8-year-old boys burst through the aircraft door, past the flight attendants trying to stop them, into the cabin with the wild energy of children on a mission. Jordan Coleman Jr., Isaiah, Elijah, identical in the way that only triplets could be. Dressed in matching hoodies and jeans, faces still soft with childhood but eyes carrying the weight of orphans who'd learned early that the world didn't promise safety. They saw Marcus, saw the captain looming over him, saw Diane's expression and Amanda's satisfaction, and the way the cabin had gone silent with the particular quiet of witnesses deciding whether to intervene. Elijah reached Marcus first, threw his arms around him. Uncle Marcus, what's happening? Are you okay? Jordan Jr., the strategist, the one who planned 3 moves ahead, took in the scene with 8-year-old clarity. Why is the pilot bothering our guardian? Isaiah, the quiet one, the one who read everything and forgot nothing, pulled out his phone, started recording. Captain Thatcher stared at the boys like they'd materialized from another dimension. Who are these children? My nephews, Marcus said, which was close enough to true. My wards. They can't be on this aircraft. How did they? We came from the private terminal, Jordan said. His voice had the precise diction of someone raised by doctors who valued education above all things. We saw Uncle Marcus being hassled at security. Then we saw him on this plane. We got worried. Diane moved toward them. Boys, you need to leave this aircraft immediately. We have documentation. Isaiah produced a folder from his backpack. Court papers, guardianship agreements, emancipation orders. We're legally emancipated minors under the guardianship of Marcus Coleman. That's him, our uncle, who you're trying to remove from his seat. The cabin had gone from silent to riveted. Phones were emerging, people shifting to see better. Lawrence Sinclair was openly grinning. Then another passenger stood, older woman, black, seated in first class. She walked back to row 12 with the kind of authority that made even Captain Thatcher pause. Excuse me, Captain, I'm Naomi Pierce, cardiothoracic surgeon. I was at the medical device conference in Los Angeles where Mr. Coleman gave the keynote address yesterday on the latest innovations in valve replacement technology. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course, the conference he'd attended because TechMedics had 3 products in the cardiac surgery space and networking with surgeons was part of the job. The keynote he'd delivered on 2 hours of sleep because preparing for this flight had consumed his week. Dr. Pierce continued, Mr. Coleman is 3 weeks post-operative from triple bypass surgery. I reviewed his case with his surgical team. He absolutely requires extra legroom for circulation. Forcing him into a middle seat in the back is medically contraindicated and potentially dangerous. She pulled out her phone, started recording. I'm documenting this because it appears you're about to remove a post-operative cardiac patient from his assigned seat to accommodate another passenger's preference. As a physician, I'm noting my professional objection. Thatcher looked around, at the boys, at Dr. Pierce, at Lawrence Sinclair, at the dozens of passengers now openly filming, at Marcus, who sat perfectly still in seat 12C with 3 8-year-olds clustered around him like a protective detail. The captain's radio crackled. Security to gate 47B. Passenger removal requested. Thatcher keyed the radio. Send them in! Airport security arrived in pairs. Officer Derek Mitchell led, 35 years old with the build of someone who'd discovered weightlifting as religion and the demeanor of someone who'd learned authority through application rather than earned respect. His partner, younger, female, wearing the expression of someone already uncomfortable with whatever was about to happen. Hung back half a step, Mitchell surveyed the cabin like a crime scene. His eyes catalogued Marcus, the 3 boys' doctor, Pierce with her phone still recording, Lawrence Sinclair standing in the aisle with a lawyer's posture, and the 50-plus passengers watching with the rapt attention usually reserved for traffic accidents. Captain Thatcher gestured toward Marcus. This passenger is refusing to follow crew instructions. He needs to be removed. Mitchell's hand moved to his belt, not to his weapon, not yet, but to the zip-tie handcuffs that every airport cop carried since 9/11 made metal restraints a liability in aircraft cabins. Sir, you need to come with me. Marcus looked at the boys. Elijah had started crying silently, tears tracking down 8-year-old cheeks. Jordan's jaw was set in that way that meant he was calculating angles, looking for solutions. Isaiah kept recording, his phone steady in small hands that shouldn't have to document injustice before 4th grade. I'll leave voluntarily. Give me a moment to gather my things. Now, sir. I have medical equipment. I need 30 seconds to... Mitchell moved forward. His partner finally spoke up. Derek, let him get his medications. He just said medical. He can get them after we process him. Marcus started to stand, slowly. The way his cardiologist had instructed, no sudden movements, let the blood pressure adjust. Remember, your cardiovascular system is still learning its new architecture. He reached for his backpack. Mitchell grabbed his arm. The grip was immediate, forceful, the kind of hold designed to establish dominance rather than ensure compliance. Marcus felt his rebuilt heart kick against his ribs, felt the beta blocker failing to keep pace with adrenaline, felt muscle memory from 42 years of navigating these situations scream at him to stay calm. Don't resist, give them no excuse. Sir, I'm complying, you don't need to... Hands behind your back. I'm a heart surgery patient, I need to move slowly. Mitchell yanked Marcus's arm behind him. The motion was sharp, professional in its efficiency, brutal in its execution. Marcus felt something pull in his chest. Not cardiac, not dangerous, but the still healing tissue protesting treatment that didn't account for scalpels and sutures 3 weeks old. The zip tie ratcheted around his wrists. Too tight, immediately too tight. Plastic biting into skin that was already compromised from blood thinners making him bruise like overripe fruit. The restraints are cutting off circulation. Standard procedure. Jordan Jr.'s voice cut through the cabin. You're hurting him. He has a heart condition. Mitchell ignored him, pulled Marcus toward the aisle. Marcus tried to plant his feet, tried to slow the momentum enough to grab his medication bag, but Mitchell interpreted resistance that wasn't there. Stop resisting! I'm not... Mitchell yanked harder. Marcus stumbled. His shoulder connected with the seat back in front of him. 12B, occupied by a businessman who jerked away like violence might be contagious. The impact sent Marcus forward, off balance, and Mitchell used the momentum to drag him into the aisle. That's when Marcus's head hit the armrest of 12D. The sound was sharp, specific, the wet crack of skull meeting hard plastic with sufficient force to split skin. Marcus felt it before he saw it, the sudden heat, the wetness tracking down his temple, the taste of copper as blood found the corner of his mouth. Dr. Pierce moved. "Stop! He's bleeding! I'm a doctor! Ma'am, step back or you'll be removed too. He has a heart condition. You're triggering a potential cardiac event." Mitchell kept pulling. Marcus's legs tried to cooperate, but his vision was doing something strange, tunneling and expanding like his pupils couldn't decide on the proper response to trauma. The cabin tilted, or he tilted. Physics was negotiable when your brain was trying to process concussion and humiliation simultaneously. Isaiah's voice, high and breaking. "Uncle Marcus!" Elijah screaming now. Not silent tears, but the full-throated panic of a child watching his guardian. The only parental figure left after 18 months of orphanhood. Being brutalized 3 feet away, Jordan trying to be brave. "We're calling our lawyer, we're calling—" Mitchell's partner finally grabbed his arm. "Derek, he's bleeding. We need to slow down. I've got this under control." Marcus's knees hit the aisle floor. He didn't remember going down, but gravity had won some argument his body hadn't been part of. The carpet was industrial blue, stained. He could see the individual fibers, could count them if he wanted, if his brain wasn't currently trying to assess whether the wetness on his face was dangerous bleeding or just embarrassing bleeding. Passengers were standing, shouting. Someone yelling to stop, someone else filming, someone else. Older voice, male, authoritative, demanding badge numbers. Mitchell hauled Marcus upright. The cabin spun. Marcus's rebuilt heart was doing its own interpretation of cardiac rhythm, something that felt less like steady pumping and more like a jazz drummer having a breakdown. His chest hurt, not heart attack hurt, not call the code blue hurt, but hurt in the way that said his body was using resources meant for healing to process being dragged through an aircraft like cargo. They moved toward the front. Marcus's feet tried to help, but his legs had opinions about cooperation that didn't align with Mitchell's timeline. He stumbled, caught himself on a seatback, left a smear of blood on beige leather that cost somebody in first class an upcharge. They definitely weren't getting their money's worth from today. Dr. Pierce was still recording, her voice clinical, detailed, the kind of documentation that would sound devastating in a courtroom. Patient is post-operative day 21 from CABG. Currently being subjected to physical force resulting in head trauma and visible bleeding. Restraints applied to wrists compromising circulation. Patient demonstrating signs of shock. "Ma'am, final warning." They reached the jet bridge. Marcus risked a look back. Saw the boys being held by flight attendants who at least had the grace to look uncomfortable about restraining 8-year-olds. Saw Lawrence Sinclair on his phone, already calling someone, probably multiple someones. Saw Amanda Whitmore in seat 12C looking vaguely horrified, like she'd ordered a difficult passenger removed but hadn't quite expected blood. Saw Captain Thatcher standing in the cockpit door, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The jet bridge was empty. Just Marcus and Mitchell and his partner, who kept saying things like, "Maybe we should get medical," and "Derek, he's really bleeding," that Mitchell continued to ignore with the selective hearing of someone committed to a course of action. They hit the terminal. Gate 47B was chaos. Passengers from other flights stopping to store TSA agents looking over from their checkpoint. A gate agent from Southwest picking up her phone, probably calling management, probably starting the incident report chain that would eventually reach someone with authority to question whether dragging a bleeding passenger through LAX was standard procedure. Mitchell kept moving, past gate 48, past 49, toward the security office tucked between gates that most passengers never noticed because most passengers never required airport police intervention. Marcus's vision was clearing. The adrenaline was doing its job. sharpening focus even as it made his hands shake and his heart race and his rebuilt cardiovascular system try to remember why this all seemed like a terrible idea. He could feel blood drying on his temple, could feel the zip tie cutting deeper with each step, could feel his dignity being stripped in front of hundreds of witnesses who'd remember this as the day they saw some black guy, because his race would definitely make it into their dinner table retelling, get what was coming to him. The security office door opened. Mitchell shoved Marcus inside. The room was standard issue. Concrete block walls painted institutional beige, metal desk bolted to the floor, chair designed for minimum comfort, fluorescent lights that made everyone look either jaundiced or dead, a holding cell in everything but name. Mitchell pushed Marcus into the chair. Too hard. Marcus's tailbone connected with metal and sent a jolt up his spine that his concussed brain interpreted as further evidence that today was taking a medical turn nobody'd prepared for. Stay there. Marcus wasn't going anywhere. His wrists were still zip-tied behind his back. His head was still bleeding. His heart was still trying to figure out if this qualified as the kind of stress his cardiologist had warned about when she'd said things like, avoid confrontation and minimize emotional strain, and other instructions that seemed designed for a universe where black men could simply decline to be discriminated against. Mitchell's partner entered. She had a first aid kit, finally. She approached Marcus with apologetic eyes that didn't quite make up for the fact that she'd watched her partner assault a heart patient and done nothing until it was over. Sir, I need to look at your head. Marcus leaned forward, let her examine the cut. Her hands were gentle, professional, the kind of touch that suggested actual medical training rather than Mitchell's approach to patient care. It's not deep, but it needs cleaning. You might want stitches. The restraints are cutting circulation to my hands. She looked at Mitchell. Derek, we should cut the zip tie. He's not resisting, he's injured, and if we cause permanent nerve damage, he stays restrained until we process him. Process me for what? Marcus's voice came out steadier than he felt. Sitting in my assigned seat? Interfering with flight crew, refusing to follow lawful orders, creating a disturbance. I sat in a seat I paid for. Your captain decided another passenger's preference outweighed my medical documentation. Mitchell leaned against the desk, crossed his arms, had the posture of someone who'd done this enough times to have a script. That's not how the crew describes it. Says you were aggressive, argumentative, refused multiple requests to cooperate. There are 40 phones recording what actually happened. Cameras don't tell the whole story. Lawrence Sinclair appeared in the doorway. Behind him, 2 airport supervisors and someone in a United Airlines corporate uniform that screamed management. The attorney's expression was controlled fury wrapped in professional courtesy. Officer, I'm Mr. Coleman's legal counsel. I'm advising him not to answer any questions without me present. Mitchell straightened. Sir, this is a secure area. You can't be. I have every right to be present during questioning of my client. I'm also formally requesting medical attention for his head injury and the removal of restraints that are causing circulatory compromise. The United manager stepped forward. Woman in her mid-50s, salt and pepper hair, the kind of exhausted competence that came from decades of managing airline crises. Her name tag read Karen Martinez, district manager. What the hell happened on that aircraft? Mitchell started talking, something about disruptive passengers and crew safety and proper protocol. But Karen was looking at Marcus, at the blood still wet on his temple, at the zip tie buried in his wrists, at the way he was sitting, too still, too careful, the posture of someone trying not to move because movement meant pain. Cut those restraints, now. Ma'am, procedure requires, now, officer. Or I'm calling your supervisor and airport management and every news outlet in Los Angeles. This passenger is bleeding. The entire incident was filmed. Cut the damn restraints. Mitchell's partner moved fast, produced trauma shears from her belt, cut the zip tie with one smooth motion. Marcus felt blood rush back into his hands like fire. felt pins and needles that meant nerve function returning, brought his hands forward and saw the deep red lines where plastic had bitten through skin, saw the bruising already forming. Karen knelt beside him. "Mr. Coleman, I need you to know this is not standard procedure. What happened on that aircraft was discrimination." Lawrence Sinclair's voice cut clean. "My client is a paying passenger with medical documentation requiring specific seating. Your crew attempted to force him to surrender his seat to accommodate another passenger's preference. When he declined, your captain called security. The ensuing removal resulted in head trauma and restraints that caused tissue damage." Karen closed her eyes, probably doing math in her head, the math of lawsuits and viral videos and corporate liability. "I need to see his boarding pass, his medical documentation, everything." Marcus pulled out his phone, hands shaking, from shock, from adrenaline, from the specific humiliation of being 42 years old and accomplished and still getting brutalized for existing in spaces that didn't expect him. He pulled up his boarding pass, his medical clearance, the letter from Dr. Sarah Mendez spelling out in clinical detail why extra legroom wasn't preference, but medical necessity. Karen read it all. Her expression shifted through several emotions: surprise, anger, resignation. "Officer, I'm requesting you release Mr. Coleman immediately. United Airlines will not be pressing charges. In fact, we'll be conducting a full internal investigation into crew conduct." Mitchell's jaw tightened. "My report will state he was non-compliant. Your report will be reviewed alongside approximately 50 passenger recordings that I'm certain will tell a different story." Karen stood, pulled out her phone. "I'm calling our legal team. Mr. Sinclair, I assume you'll want to discuss this further." "Extensively." Lawrence handed her his card. "My firm specializes in civil rights litigation. We've handled 47 discrimination cases against airlines. This will be 48. 47. The number hit Marcus like a second concussion. 47 previous cases. 47 other passengers who'd been through variations of this same script. How many had been black? How many had been questioned, doubted, removed, brutalized for the crime of buying a ticket while melanated? "I need medical attention." Marcus's voice came out softer than intended. "And I need to make a phone call." Karen nodded. "We'll get paramedics, and you can use the phone here. I need privacy." Something in his tone made Karen pause, made her look at him again, really look, at the expensive hoodie covered in blood, at the watch barely visible under his sleeve, at the way he held himself despite injury, the bearing of someone accustomed to authority even when circumstance tried to strip it away. "Of course. Officer, you're dismissed. Mr. Coleman, you're free to leave whenever you're ready. I'll have someone bring you to a private area." Mitchell left, took his partner with him. His expression promised this wasn't over, that his report would be thorough and damning and carefully worded to justify everything that happened. Marcus had seen that look before, knew it meant trouble downstream. But downstream could wait. A customer service representative appeared. Young man, early 20s, wearing the nervous expression of someone who'd been handed a crisis above his pay grade. He led Marcus to a private lounge. United Club, normally required membership or first-class tickets. Now offered as apology in advance for the lawsuit everyone knew was coming. The lounge was quiet, mid-afternoon lull. A few business travelers working on laptops, one family with small children corralled in the designated kids area, nobody paying attention to the bleeding man being ushered into a back office. The office was small. Desk, chair, phone, window overlooking the tarmac where planes taxied in carefully choreographed patterns. Marcus sat. "Let the customer service rep," his name tag read James, "bring him water and a proper first aid kit and apologies that cost nothing but might save United millions in bad press." "Sir, is there anything else I can—" "Privacy. I need 15 minutes alone." James retreated, closed the door. Marcus sat in silence and felt his body start processing trauma. The shaking that came after adrenaline burned out. The nausea that meant concussion or stress or both. The exhaustion that lived bone deep. The kind that accumulates from a lifetime of these moments. He picked up the phone, dialed a number he knew by heart. 3 rings. Then a voice that represented 2 decades of working together, of building tech medics from a garage startup to an $8 billion medical device empire, of trusting each other through crises that made today look manageable. Susan Chen speaking. Marcus closed his eyes, steadied his voice. Susan, it's Marcus. I need you to execute Emergency Protocol 7. Silence. Then carefully. Marcus, Protocol 7 is for catastrophic corporate emergencies, board-level threats. Are you certain? I was just dragged off a United flight, assaulted by airport police. I'm bleeding. The entire incident was recorded by multiple passengers. It's going to be viral within the hour. And Susan, I own $847 million in United stock, 14.7%. I want that plane grounded. I want the FAA notified. I want our legal team here within 2 hours. And I want the United Airlines Board of Directors to understand that they just made the single worst operational decision in company history. Another pause. Marcus could hear Susan thinking, calculating, already pulling up files and contact lists and the nuclear option protocols they'd created years ago but never had to use. How badly are you hurt? Concussion, lacerations, possible nerve damage in my wrists from restraints. I'll live. Marcus, I need to know, are you doing this from a position of strength or emotion? The question was fair. Susan had earned the right to ask it, had earned the right to push back when necessary, to question decisions made in the heat of crisis, to be the voice of reason when Marcus's judgment might be compromised by fury or pain or the particular rage that came from being treated like a criminal for existing. Marcus looked at his reflection in the window, saw the blood dried on his temple, saw the exhaustion in eyes that had seen his father work himself to death for respect that never came, saw the weight of 42 years of code switching and twice the work and proving himself in rooms that didn't expect him. Both. I'm doing this from both. And Susan, every single decision I'm about to make is going to be the right one. Understood. I'm making calls now. Flight 2847 will be grounded within 10 minutes. FAA administrator will be notified. Legal team is already on the corporate jet. They'll be wheels down at LAX in 90 minutes. I'm also calling Dr. Mendez to alert her that you've sustained head trauma. She'll want imaging. Medical comes after. Marcus, after I finish what I started. He hung up, pulled out his phone, opened the app that controlled his investment portfolio, the one that tracked his United Airlines holdings in real time. $847 million. Purchased over 3 years, bought strategically during dips, built up slowly, never triggering the reporting requirements that would alert the board to his intentions until he was ready to make a move. He'd been ready for 6 months. Had planned to approach the board quietly, professionally, with data about discrimination patterns and proposals for systematic reform. Had imagined himself as mediator rather than weapon. That plan was dead. Marcus opened his contacts, found a name he'd hoped never to use, Jonathan Reese. Jonathan, Federal Aviation Administration, administrator, former colleague from Princeton. Someone who owed Marcus favors dating back to a research grant that had saved Jonathan's career 15 years ago. The call connected. Marcus Coleman, I haven't heard from you in 3 years. This must be important. Jonathan, I need you to ground United Flight 2847, currently at LAX Gate 47B. I need a full FAA investigation into crew conduct, passenger removal protocols, and use of force policies. Silence. Then cautiously. Marcus, the FAA doesn't ground flights based on customer service complaints. I was assaulted and forcibly removed from my assigned seat after presenting valid medical documentation. The incident was recorded by multiple witnesses. I sustained head trauma. Airport police used excessive force. And Jonathan? I'm 3 weeks post-op from triple bypass. If I'd had a cardiac event during that assault, United would be dealing with manslaughter charges. More silence. Marcus heard keyboard clicks. Jonathan pulling up information, probably already seeing the incident reports starting to flood in. Probably already seeing his afternoon schedule dissolve into crisis management. Send me everything. Medical records, boarding documentation, witness recordings. I'll have inspectors at LAX within the hour. The plane needs to be grounded now, before it takes off, before evidence is contaminated. Marcus, that's... Please, Jonathan, I'm asking as a friend, as someone who's never asked you for anything despite having every right to call in favors. Ground that plane. The keyboard clicks stopped. Consider it done. But Marcus, this is going to trigger a massive investigation. FAA involvement means federal scrutiny. Airlines hate federal scrutiny. United stock is going to tank, and if you're planning what I think you're planning, I'm planning justice. Systematic, permanent, the kind that prevents the next person from ending up bleeding in an airport office. All right, but Marcus, document everything, get medical attention, and for God's sake, hire the best lawyers money can buy. Already done. Thank you, Jonathan. Marcus ended the call, sat back in the chair, felt his rebuilt heart settling into something approaching normal rhythm. Felt the pain in his head crystallizing from diffuse throbbing into specific agony. Felt the exhaustion that came not from the assault itself, but from the knowledge that this was just beginning. His phone buzzed. Text from a number he recognized. Jordan Jr. Uncle Marcus, they won't let us see you. Where are you? Are you okay? We're scared. Marcus typed back. I'm safe. In United Club near Gate 52. Tell the flight attendants to let you through or I'm calling my lawyers. I'm your legal guardian. They can't keep you from me. We're coming. 5 minutes later, the door burst open. 3 8-year-old boys rushed in with the momentum of people who'd been told no and decided that wasn't acceptable. They stopped when they saw him, saw the blood, saw the bruises already forming on his wrists, saw their guardian, their uncle, their last link to parents who'd died 18 months ago, damaged. Elijah started crying again. Isaiah just stared, his phone still in his hand like he'd forgotten he was holding it. Jordan Jr. walked forward slowly, reached out, touched Marcus's hand with the careful gentleness of a child who understood broken things. They hurt you. I'm okay. You're not okay. You're bleeding. Your wrists. I'll heal. Come here, all of you. They clustered around him, 3 small bodies pressed against his chair, seeking comfort and offering it simultaneously. Marcus wrapped his arms around them, carefully, because his wrists screamed and his head pounded and his chest hurt from healing tissue stressed beyond its limits, and felt something crack inside him that had nothing to do with concussion. These boys had lost their parents to random chance. A drunk driver on Pacific Coast Highway. Gone in an instant. And now they'd watched the only parental figure they had left get brutalized for the crime of existing while black. I need you 3 to listen carefully. What happened today was wrong. It was illegal. It was discrimination. And we're going to make sure it never happens to anyone else. Jordan pulled back, looked at Marcus with eyes that were too old for 8. How? By using the power we have, by documenting everything, by making this so public, so undeniable that the system has to change. Will the bad people get in trouble? Yes, all of them. The flight attendant who discriminated, the captain who enabled it, the officer who hurt me, the system that protected them, all of it. Isaiah's voice was small, uncertain. But what if they hurt you more? What if they can't hurt me more than they already have? And boys, I have something they don't know about, something that's going to change everything. What? Marcus pulled up his phone, showed them his investment portfolio, showed them the number, $847 million, showed them the percentage, 14.7%, showed them what that meant in the context of United Airlines' corporate structure. I own this company, not all of it, but enough. Enough to force change. Enough to make sure what happened to me is the last straw that breaks an entire system. The boys stared at the numbers. Jordan started grinning. That particular grin that meant he understood strategy, understood power, understood that sometimes justice required leverage. You're going to destroy them. I'm going to transform them. There's a difference. Destruction is revenge. Transformation is justice. A knock on the door. Karen Martinez entered, followed by two paramedics and someone Marcus didn't recognize. Older white man, expensive suit, the bearing of corporate legal counsel who'd been summoned from wherever corporate legal counsels spent Tuesday afternoons. The man stepped forward, extended his hand, thought better of it when he saw Marcus's wrists. Mr. Coleman, I'm Richard Zhao, General Counsel for United Airlines. I've been briefed on the situation. On behalf of United, I want to express our profound apologies for what occurred today. Marcus said nothing. Let the silence stretch. Let Richard understand that apologies cost nothing and fixed less. Richard continued, We'd like to offer immediate remediation, full refund of your ticket, complimentary first-class travel for a year, $25,000 in flight vouchers, and of course, full coverage of any medical expenses related to today's incident. Lawrence Sinclair appeared in the doorway. Behind him, Dr. Naomi Pierce. Both wearing expressions that suggested they'd compared notes and reached conclusions that United's legal team wasn't going to like. Lawrence spoke first. Mr. Zhao, my client won't be accepting your offer. What happened today constitutes assault, battery, discrimination under federal law, and violation of the Air Carrier Access Act. United's attempt to resolve this with flight vouchers is insulting. Mr. Sinclair, I assure you we're taking this seriously. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you're offering hush money while your crew is still on duty and your policies remain unchanged. How many settlements has United paid in the last 5 years for discrimination incidents? Richard's expression flickered, just for a moment, long enough for everyone in the room to know the answer was higher than he wanted to admit. Dr. Pierce pulled out her phone, played the video she'd recorded, the entire incident from her first-class vantage point, Marcus being grabbed, his head hitting the armrest, blood spreading, the boys crying, the zip ties cutting into his wrists. All of it documented in high-definition clarity. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon. I've already provided professional testimony that this incident created substantial risk of cardiac event in a post-operative patient. That crosses from civil complaint into criminal negligence territory. Richard was sweating now. Marcus could see the calculation happening behind expensive law school training, could see the math of liability versus settlement versus the public relations nightmare that was already brewing. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Susan. Flight 2847 grounded. FAA inspectors on site. Legal team landing in 40 minutes. CNN picked up the story. You're trending on Twitter. Hashtag United Discrimination has 2.3 million mentions and climbing. He showed the phone to Richard. Watched the lawyer's face go pale. Mr. Zhao, here's what's going to happen. Your company will cooperate fully with the FAA investigation. You'll suspend all crew members involved pending that investigation. You'll provide complete documentation of every discrimination complaint filed in the last 5 years. And you'll prepare your board of directors for an emergency meeting because in approximately 3 hours I'm going to walk into United headquarters and explain exactly how much this incident is about to cost them. Mr. Coleman, I don't understand. I own 14.7% of United Airlines. I've been documenting discrimination patterns for 18 months. Today was supposed to be quiet research. Instead, your employees made it a catalyst. So now we're doing this the hard way. Richard sat down heavily, looked at Karen, looked at Lawrence, looked at Marcus sitting there with blood on his face and 3 8-year-olds standing guard in the kind of quiet fury that moved markets. I need to make some calls. You should probably make them quickly because in about 90 seconds the paramedics are going to examine me, document my injuries, and create a medical record that's going to be Exhibit A in the most expensive lawsuit United has ever faced. The paramedics moved in. Professional. Thorough. They cleaned the cut on his temple. 7-centimeter laceration would definitely scar. Examined his wrists, deep tissue bruising, possible nerve compression, would need follow-up with a neurologist. Checked his vital signs, blood pressure elevated, heart rate concerning for someone 3 weeks post-CABG, recommended immediate transport to Cedars-Sinai for cardiac monitoring. Marcus declined the transport, accepted the documentation, let them bandage his head and photograph his wrists and create the paper trail that would follow this incident through investigation and litigation and eventual testimony. Through it all, the boys stayed close, Jordan filming everything on his phone. Isaiah taking notes in a small notebook he'd produced from somewhere. Elijah just holding Marcus's hand, anchor and comfort wrapped in 8-year-old determination. When the paramedics finished, Marcus stood, tested his balance. His head swam but held steady. His body protested but obeyed. His rebuilt heart kept beating its complicated rhythm. Pharmaceutical assistance and surgical intervention working together to keep him upright. I need to get to that plane before it's moved. Lawrence shook his head. Marcus, and I'm using your first name because we're past formality. You have a head injury. You need rest, monitoring, possibly imaging. I need to see that aircraft. I need to document where I was sitting, where the assault occurred, every detail before United has a chance to sanitize. The FAA is doing that. I'm doing it too. This is my case, my evidence, my transformation of an industry that's been systematically discriminating for decades. Dr. Pierce stepped forward. Mr. Coleman, as a physician, I'm advising you to seek immediate medical attention. As a witness, I'm telling you I documented everything. As someone who's seen this pattern before, I was on a flight 2 years ago where a young black woman was removed for suspicious behavior that amounted to reading while Muslim. I'm saying you have allies. Let us help you. Marcus looked at her, really looked, saw the determination in her expression, the anger that came from witnessing injustice too many times, the professional commitment to evidence-based truth. I'll get imaging. After. Right now. I need you to send me your recording. I need every angle, every witness, every piece of documentation before United's lawyers start making things disappear. Already sent to your attorney. Also sent to my personal backup. Also uploaded to a cloud server that automatically distributes to multiple locations if tampered with. Dr. Pierce smiled. It wasn't friendly. I've testified in discrimination cases before. I know how evidence goes missing. Marcus felt something unwind in his chest. Not relief. This was too far from over for relief. But recognition. He wasn't alone in this. Wasn't the only person who'd seen the pattern, documented the abuse, decided enough was enough. Thank you. Thank me by destroying them. Systematically, permanently, make this the last time a heart patient gets brutalized for sitting in a seat they paid for. The door opened again, this time. 3 people in FAA windbreakers, federal investigators with credentials and clipboards and the kind of official bearing that made everyone in the room straighten involuntarily. The lead investigator, woman in her 40s, graying hair, expression of someone who'd seen every kind of airline disaster, looked at Marcus. Mr. Coleman, I'm Inspector Sarah Rodriguez, FAA Safety Division. We need your statement. You'll have it. But first, I need access to Flight 2847. I need to document the scene. Sir, that's our job. I understand. But I'm also the victim. And I'm also the primary shareholder capable of forcing United to cooperate fully with your investigation. So either we do this together, or I call my lawyers and we spend 3 months fighting over access while evidence degrades. Inspector Rodriguez studied him. Saw the bandage on his head, saw the bruises on his wrists, saw 3 8-year-olds standing protective guard, saw Lawrence Sinclair with his lawyer smile and Dr. Pierce with her phone full of evidence, and made the calculation that experienced investigators learned early. Sometimes cooperation meant bending procedure. You have 15 minutes on that aircraft. You touch nothing. You photograph everything. And Mr. Coleman, if this investigation finds what I think it's going to find, United isn't just looking at fines. They're looking at federal criminal charges for assault and civil rights violations. Good, they should be. Flight 2847 sat at Gate 47B like a crime scene waiting for yellow tape. The jet bridge was still connected, but security had cordoned off the area with that particular efficiency that airports deployed when federal investigators arrived with clipboards and questions. Inspector Rodriguez led the way, followed by Marcus, the three boys trailing behind like small shadows, and Lawrence Sinclair bringing up the rear with his phone already recording. The aircraft smelled like recycled air, and the particular staleness that came from ventilation systems pumping atmosphere through aluminum tubes. Marcus stepped into the cabin and felt his rebuilt heart skip. Not medically dangerous, just the visceral response to returning to a space where he'd been brutalized 90 minutes earlier. Seat 12C looked innocent. Just another exit row seat, slightly more legroom than standard, upholstery still bearing the indent from where he'd sat before everything detonated. Marcus photographed it from 6 angles, documented the armrest of 12D where his head had connected. No visible blood now. Someone had cleaned it. Probably Diane Ashford trying to sanitize evidence before realizing that 47 passenger phones had already immortalized every moment. Inspector Rodriguez was taking her own photographs, measuring distances, documenting sightlines. Her partner, younger man with the methodical demeanor of someone who'd learned investigation through repetition, was interviewing passengers who'd volunteered to stay. Most had missed their connections. None seemed to care. They stood in clusters near the gate, swapping contact information and comparing footage. United by the strange bond of witnessing something that would probably define their understanding of injustice for years to come. Jordan Jr. pointed to the aisle. That's where Uncle Marcus fell. See the slight discoloration? Inspector Rodriguez knelt, examined the carpet with gloved hands. Found what Jordan had spotted, microscopic blood spatter that industrial cleaning hadn't quite erased. She flagged it, photographed it, added it to the growing catalog of evidence that was transforming a customer service complaint into a federal case. Isaiah was recording everything on his phone, his 8-year-old voice providing running commentary that sounded like a nature documentary narrator documenting predators. The incident occurred at 14:27 Pacific Time. Subject was removed from assigned seat 12 Charlie after refusing to surrender said seat to another passenger. Physical force was applied, resulting in head trauma and restraint injuries. Lawrence looked at the boy with something approaching awe. Isaiah, have you done this before? Our parents were scientists. They taught us to document everything. Observations without evidence are just opinions. Marcus felt that particular ache that came from missing people who weren't coming back. Dr. Jordan and Dr. Rachel Coleman had been the kind of parents who turned grocery shopping into lessons about nutrition and economics, who made bedtime stories into discussions about ethics and justice. They'd raised these boys to think critically, question authority, demand evidence, and now those boys were using those skills to document their guardian's assault. Elijah was quieter, standing near seat 12C with his small hand resting on the armrest like he could somehow absorb what had happened through touch. Uncle Marcus, did it hurt when they grabbed you? Marcus knelt beside him, slowly because his head was still spinning and his wrists throbbed, and kneeling was surprisingly complicated when your body was processing trauma. Yes, it hurt. But Elijah, I need you to understand something important. The pain doesn't matter as much as what we do about it. Your parents taught me that, taught all of us that. When something wrong happens, you document it, you report it, and you fight to make sure it doesn't happen again. But what if fighting makes people hurt you more? The question landed like a physical blow. 8 years old and already understanding the calculus that every black parent in America had to teach their children. How to navigate a world that treated your existence as threat, your resistance as aggression, your dignity as negotiable. Sometimes they do. Sometimes fighting back means accepting that you might get hurt worse before things get better. But Elijah, if people who have power, people like me, people with resources and lawyers and the ability to make noise, if we don't fight, then who will? The people who can't afford lawyers, the people who don't have cameras, the people who lose their jobs if they make waves? Inspector Rodriguez had stopped her documentation, was listening with the focused attention of someone hearing something that mattered beyond the immediate investigation. Marcus continued, I can afford to fight this. I can afford the lawyers and the medical bills and the time off work. Most people can't. So I have a responsibility, not just to myself, but to every person who'll board a United flight after me. To make this fight so public, so expensive, so undeniably documented that the system has no choice but to change. Will it work? I don't know. But trying and failing is still better than not trying at all. Inspector Rodriguez cleared her throat. Mr. Coleman, for what it's worth, in 23 years of investigating airline incidents, I've never seen documentation this thorough before the FAA even arrived. Usually we're fighting for footage, fighting for witnesses, fighting for anyone to care enough to provide evidence. This? She gestured at her clipboard already thick with witness statements. This is unprecedented. Marcus stood, felt his vision swim, steadied himself on the seat back. Inspector, how many discrimination complaints has United received in the last 5 years? She hesitated. Federal investigators weren't supposed to discuss ongoing investigations. But something in her expression shifted, the look of someone who'd seen the same pattern too many times. Officially, I can't comment. Unofficially? Enough that this isn't an isolated incident, enough that your case is going to trigger a much broader investigation into systematic patterns. How many settlements? More than there should be. Lawrence stepped forward. Inspector Rodriguez, my firm has represented victims in 47 discrimination cases against various airlines over the past decade. I can provide you with documentation showing patterns of behavior, sealed settlements, repeat offenders protected by corporate policy. Would that be helpful to your investigation? Extremely. Send everything to my office. If even half of what you're suggesting is accurate, United is looking at a consent decree and federal oversight. Marcus's phone buzzed. Text from Susan. Your legal team just landed. They're en route to LAX. Also, CNN wants an interview. So does NBC, ABC, SBS, and approximately 47 other outlets. Do I schedule? He typed back. No interviews until after I speak to the United board. I want them to hear this from me first, not from cable news. Another buzz, different number. His mother. Marcus, baby, I'm seeing things on the news about United Airlines, about someone being dragged off a plane. That wasn't you, was it? Marcus closed his eyes. Of course Ruby had seen it. The footage was everywhere by now. Viral didn't begin to cover it. He'd checked Twitter during the paramedic examination. 8 million views. 12 million. 20 million and climbing. The algorithm had decided that watching a black man get brutalized was the content Tuesday needed. He stepped away from the investigation, moved toward the front of the aircraft where he could have privacy, called his mother. Mama, I'm okay. I'm safe. Yes, that was me on the news. Ruby's voice came through tight with worry. Marcus Elijah Coleman, what happened? Middle name. She was serious. I was flying to see you, got discriminated against. When I wouldn't give up my seat, they called security. It got physical. I'm bruised, but okay. Bruised? Baby, the video shows you bleeding. Head wounds bleed a lot. It's superficial, 7 stitches maybe, I'm fine. You just had heart surgery, you can't be getting into fights with... I didn't fight anyone, Mama. I sat in a seat I paid for. They decided that was a problem. Silence on the line. Marcus could hear her breathing, could imagine her in the Houston house where he'd grown up, standing in the kitchen where she'd raised 6 children and buried a husband and somehow maintained faith that the world would eventually bend toward justice. "What are you going to do, baby?" "I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else." That sounds like fighting. It is fighting. But the kind Dad taught me. The kind where you use the system against itself. Where you document everything and lawyer up and make so much noise they can't ignore you. Your father fought that way for 40 years. Died exhausted. I know. But Mama, I have something Dad didn't. I have money. Real money. The kind that buys lawyers and attention and the ability to force change from the inside. Ruby was quiet for a long moment, then softly. "How much do you own?" "Of United? 14.7%, $847 million worth." Another silence. Longer this time. "Lord have mercy, Marcus, that's enough to force a board meeting. Enough to demand accountability, enough to make this about systematic change instead of just personal revenge." "But baby, is it safe going after them like this? These are powerful people with powerful lawyers." "I have powerful lawyers too. And I have something they don't. I have the truth. I have documentation. I have 47 passengers who filmed everything. I have federal investigators who are already finding patterns. Mama, this isn't David versus Goliath. This is Goliath versus Goliath, and I'm going to win." He heard her exhale. Heard the shift from worried mother to the woman who'd raised him to believe that education and excellence and refusing to be small could change the world. "Then you go win, baby, but Marcus, come home after. Win your fight, change your system, transform your industry, but then come home and let me feed you gumbo and make sure you're healing properly." "Yes, ma'am. I'll be there tonight. Late, but I'll be there. I'll keep it warm. And Marcus, I'm proud of you. Your father would be proud too." Marcus ended the call, stood in the empty first-class cabin with his eyes burning in a way that had nothing to do with concussion and everything to do with the weight of generations. His father had spent 40 years delivering mail, documenting every instance of discrimination, filing every complaint through proper channels, dying at 64 with a heart that gave out from stress and disappointment and the exhaustion of fighting battles that never quite ended. Marcus was 42. His heart had already failed once, but unlike his father, he had resources, had power, had the ability to force change instead of just requesting it. Inspector Rodriguez appeared in the galley doorway. "Mr. Coleman, I think we have everything we need from the aircraft, but I'd like to continue this conversation at our office. There are some documents I need you to review. Patterns I think you should see." "Patterns?" "Similar incidents. Different passengers, same crew members." Marcus felt something unsettle in his chest. "How many incidents?" "In the last 18 months? Involving crew members currently assigned to this flight? 17 documented complaints, all passengers of color, all settled quietly, all sealed under non-disclosure agreements." 17. Marcus had documented 47 across the entire airline over 5 years. But 17 just from this crew? From Diane Ashford and Captain Roland Thatcher and the supporting cast of Discrimination? That wasn't pattern. That was policy. "I want names. I want case files. I want every settlement agreement, every complaint, every piece of evidence that shows this was systematic." "That's going to require subpoenas. United will fight. United won't fight. Because in about 3 hours I'm going to walk into their headquarters and explain that cooperation is their only path to survival. They can give you everything willingly, or they can watch me use my board position to force a hostile takeover, install new management, and burn their corporate structure to the ground." Lawrence had joined them, was listening with the expression of an attorney watching a client declare total war. "Marcus, that's a substantial threat. Are you prepared to follow through?" "Completely. I've been planning this for 18 months, had files ready, shareholder support lined up, financing arranged. I was going to do it quietly, professionally, as a business decision, but they changed the game, so now we play by new rules." Inspector Rodriguez pulled out her phone, showed Marcus a photograph. Internal United email dated 6 months ago from Regional Manager Kevin Palmer to all crew chiefs. The subject line read, Passenger Profiling Guidelines, Updated Procedures. Marcus read it, felt his rebuilt heart trying to climb out through his throat. The email didn't use racial language, didn't need to. It was coded in the way that institutional discrimination always was. References to passenger appearance, to socioeconomic indicators, to elevated scrutiny for travelers who may not meet traditional premium service expectations. It provided guidelines for additional verification of tickets, for confirming payment authorization, for ensuring passenger comportment aligns with cabin class standards. In other words, make sure Black people actually belong in the seats they paid for. This is a company-wide policy? Regional. But Kevin Palmer oversees West Coast operations. That's 47% of United's domestic routes. Marcus handed the phone to Lawrence, watched the attorney's expression shift from professional interest to barely controlled fury. This is textbook discrimination. This is what the Civil Rights Act was written to prevent, and they committed it to email. Inspector Rodriguez nodded. People always think they're being subtle. They use code words and careful phrasing. But when you see it applied in practice, when you track outcomes, the pattern is undeniable. We've been documenting this for 3 months. Your case is the catalyst that lets us move forward with prosecution. Who else knows about this email? United's legal team, as of about 45 minutes ago. They're currently in emergency session trying to figure out how to contain this. Marcus smiled. It wasn't friendly. They can't contain it. This is already beyond containment. Inspector, I need copies of everything you have. Every complaint, every settlement, every piece of evidence showing systematic discrimination. Mr. Coleman, that's evidence in an ongoing federal investigation. And I'm a victim in that investigation with standing to sue, with board-level access to company documents, with the resources to force United to produce everything anyway. You can give it to me now, or I can get it through discovery and we waste 6 months fighting while more passengers get discriminated against. Inspector Rodriguez looked at her partner. They had one of those silent conversations that longtime colleagues developed, entire debates happening through eye contact and minimal gestures. Finally, she nodded. I'll provide you with sanitized versions, victim names redacted. But Mr. Coleman, if you use this in civil litigation, you need to protect those identities. Some of these people signed NDAs. Some are afraid of retaliation. I'll protect them, but I'm also going to give them the option to come forward, to break those NDAs, to add their voices to a class action that's going to be so massive, so public, so thoroughly documented that United won't have any choice but to settle for transformative change. Lawrence was already making notes. We'll need to contact each victim, offer legal representation, file a motion to void the NDAs on grounds of unconscionability, settlements extracted under duress, violations of public policy, corporate fraud. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months to do it properly. Marcus checked his watch. You have 72 hours because in 3 days I'm calling an emergency shareholder meeting, and I'm going to propose a complete restructuring of United's executive team, starting with the CEO and working down through every level that enabled this. Marcus, you can't just. Shareholder meetings require proper notice, proxy statements, SEC filings. I'm the second largest individual shareholder. I have the right to call emergency meetings when I believe company management has engaged in conduct that materially threatens shareholder value, which this absolutely has. United's stock dropped 9% in the last 2 hours. It's going to drop further when the federal investigation goes public, and when the class action gets filed, when passengers realize they can sue for every instance of discrimination over the past decade. The liability is going to be catastrophic. Lawrence was quiet for a moment. Then he grinned. The kind of grin that lawyers got when they realized they were part of something that would be taught in law schools for decades. You're not just suing them. You're taking over. I'm transforming them. There's a difference. Taking over is about power. Transformation is about preventing this from ever happening again. The boys had been standing quietly, listening to adults discuss legal strategies and corporate warfare. Now Jordan Jr. stepped forward, pulled out his phone, showed Marcus something he'd been working on. It was a spreadsheet, detailed, organized, tracking every moment of the incident with timestamps, witnesses, evidence sources, the kind of document that paralegals spent weeks creating, except Jordan had done it in 90 minutes on a phone, while his guardian was being treated for injuries. Uncle Marcus, I documented everything, every person who filmed, every witness who gave statements, every piece of evidence. I also tracked social media spread. The video has been shared by 437,000 accounts, viewed by 28 million people, and generated 812,000 comments. 73% supportive, 21% racist, 6% bot activity. Marcus stared at the spreadsheet, at the level of analysis that belonged in graduate-level research, produced by an 8-year-old who'd lost his parents and decided that evidence was the best armor against chaos. Jordan, this is remarkable. It's necessary. If we're going to transform the system, we need data. Emotions fade, evidence doesn't. Inspector Rodriguez was looking at Jordan with the expression of someone reevaluating her understanding of what 8-year-olds could accomplish. Son, have you considered a career in federal law enforcement? Because we could use people with your analytical skills. I'm going to be a civil rights attorney, like Thurgood Marshall. Systematic change requires legal strategy, not just enforcement. Isaiah spoke up. I'm going to be an investigative journalist, document patterns, force transparency. Elijah, quieter but no less certain. I'm going to be a therapist, help people heal from trauma. Marcus felt something crack in his chest that had nothing to do with surgery. These boys had lost everything, had watched their guardian get brutalized, had documented injustice before they were old enough to fully understand what injustice meant. And their response wasn't despair, it was purpose. Your parents would be so proud of you three. Jordan looked up. Are you proud of us, Uncle Marcus? More than I have words to express. A United employee appeared at the aircraft door, different from the ones who'd enabled his removal. Younger, nervous, carrying himself with the particular tension of someone who'd been ordered to deliver bad news to people who already had plenty. Mr. Coleman, I'm Evan Castellano, junior flight attendant. I was on this flight but wasn't involved in the incident because I was handling the back cabin. I need to tell you something. Something I should have said earlier, but I was afraid. Marcus turned, assessed the young man, maybe 28, 30, Mediterranean features, the kind of employee who'd probably been in the job long enough to see patterns, but not long enough to become hardened to them. I'm listening. Evan glanced at Inspector Rodriguez, at Lawrence, at the recording devices and federal badges and the weight of official scrutiny. Then he took a breath and made a choice that would probably cost him his job but save his conscience. I've worked for United for 4 years. I've seen Diane Ashford discriminate against passengers at least 20 times. Always people of color. Always subtle enough that if you weren't watching for it, you'd miss it. Extra scrutiny on tickets, questioning whether people belong in their seats, moving passengers to worse locations without cause. And when passengers complained to management, nothing happened. Because Diane is married to Greg Ashford, who's a vice president in operations, who protects her. Inspector Rodriguez was recording now. Mr. Castellano, are you willing to provide formal testimony? Yes, I should have done it years ago. But I was scared. Scared of retaliation, scared of losing my job, scared of being blacklisted from the industry. But watching what happened to Mr. Coleman today, watching him get brutalized for doing nothing wrong, I can't stay silent anymore. Do you have documentation, emails, incident reports? Better. I have recordings. I've been recording my shifts for 2 years. for my own protection originally. After I saw what happened to flight attendants who reported discrimination, they got fired for unrelated infractions or pushed to terrible routes or just made miserable until they quit. So I documented everything, as insurance. I have approximately 400 hours of audio from various flights. Lawrence stepped forward. Mr. Castellano, I'm Marcus Coleman's attorney. What you're describing is whistleblower territory. You have legal protections, federal protections. If United retaliates against you for coming forward, they're looking at additional federal charges. I understand, and I'm willing to risk it, because this pattern has to stop. And Mr. Coleman, I need you to know something else. Captain Thatcher, this isn't his first incident either. He's removed passengers before, always people of color, always for reasons that don't quite hold up under scrutiny. But he's got 32 years with the company. He's got seniority. He's got protection, just like Diane. Marcus felt the pieces clicking into place. Not isolated incidents, not bad apples, systematic protection of discriminatory behavior enabled at the corporate level, protected by management, normalized through repetition until it became operational procedure. Evan, I need you to preserve those recordings. Copy them to multiple locations. Send them to Inspector Rodriguez, to my attorney, to secure servers that United can't access because they're going to try to destroy evidence. They're going to pressure you to recant. They're going to make your life difficult in ways that are hard to prove but easy to experience. I know, but I'm done being complicit. I'm done watching passengers get hurt and staying quiet because it's easier than fighting. Inspector Rodriguez was already writing. Mr. Castellano, I'm placing you under federal witness protection effective immediately. That means United cannot fire you, cannot change your work conditions, cannot retaliate in any way without triggering federal prosecution. You're now a protected witness in an ongoing civil rights investigation. Evan's shoulders relaxed fractionally. The tension of carrying secrets for 2 years finally finding release in official protection and legal framework. Marcus's phone buzzed again. Susan with an update that changed everything. Legal team is at LAX. They're requesting immediate meeting with you before approaching United. Also, I did some digging. United's CEO, William Reynolds, is currently in emergency session with the board. They're discussing crisis response. I have a source inside who says they're preparing to offer you a substantial settlement, somewhere in the 50 to 75 million range, to make this go away quietly. Instructions? Marcus typed back. Decline any settlement offer. I don't want their money. I want their company. Schedule meeting with legal team in 30 minutes. And Susan, start the process for calling an emergency shareholder meeting. I want it done by Friday. Marcus, that's 3 days. The paperwork alone, then we work fast. Call in every favor we have, every shareholder who's been frustrated with United's management. Every institutional investor who's concerned about discrimination liability. Every pension fund that can't afford the PR disaster of supporting a company with systematic civil rights violations. We don't need majority support. We just need enough pressure to force change. Understood. For what it's worth, Marcus, I'm proud to work for you. He pocketed the phone, looked at Inspector Rodriguez. How soon can you go public with your investigation? Normally, months. We'd need to complete interviews, analyze evidence, build an airtight case. But given the public nature of this incident, given the media attention, given that we have video evidence and willing witnesses, I can have a preliminary announcement by tomorrow morning. Won't include all details, but enough to confirm federal investigation into systematic discrimination. That's perfect, because United's board is going to meet tomorrow to discuss damage control. I want them walking into that meeting knowing the federal government is investigating, knowing their practices are under scrutiny, knowing that their legal exposure isn't just civil but potentially criminal. Lawrence was grinning again. You're not giving them time to formulate a defense. You're hitting them from multiple angles simultaneously. Federal investigation, class action lawsuit, Hostile shareholder action, media pressure. They're going to be paralyzed trying to respond to all of it. That's the goal. Paralysis creates opportunity for transformation. They can't fight change if they're too busy fighting fires. The boys were watching this unfold with the focused attention of people learning strategy in real time. Jordan was taking notes. Isaiah was recording. Elijah was just listening, processing, understanding that sometimes justice required orchestration rather than spontaneous action. Marcus's head was pounding. The adrenaline that had carried him through the last 2 hours was wearing thin, leaving behind the reality of concussion and trauma and a body that desperately needed rest. But rest meant giving United time to organize. Rest meant letting momentum slip. Rest meant allowing the system to recover and mount a defense, so rest could wait. Inspector Rodriguez, I need everything you can legally provide by tonight. Lawrence, I need our legal team briefed and ready to file the class action by Thursday morning. Evan, I need those recordings cataloged and secured, and boys, he looked at Jordan, Isaiah, Elijah. I need you three to stay safe, to let the adults handle the dangerous parts, to trust that we're going to fix this. Jordan shook his head. We're part of this too. We're victims. We watched our guardian get assaulted. We documented it. We have standing. You're 8 years old. We're emancipated minors with legal capacity to testify and participate in litigation. Our trust fund is worth $2.1 billion. We can afford our own lawyers if necessary. We're not sitting on the sidelines while you fight this alone. Marcus looked at Lawrence. The attorney shrugged. Technically, they're right. Emancipation gives them legal rights equivalent to adults for purposes of testimony and litigation. If they want to be part of this, they can be. Absolutely not. This is going to get ugly. United will attack my credibility, my motives, my history. They'll try to make this about money instead of justice. They'll dig into everything. I'm not letting them anywhere near these boys. Isaiah spoke up, quiet but firm. Uncle Marcus, they're already near us. We're already part of this. We were on that plane. We witnessed the assault. We have evidence. Trying to protect us by excluding us just means we're vulnerable without agency. But if we're active participants, if we're witnesses and plaintiffs and voices, then we have protection. We have purpose. We have power. The logic was flawless. 8 years old and already understanding that visibility could be protection. That participation meant control, that being on the sidelines meant being a target without tools. Marcus closed his eyes, felt his rebuilt heart hammering against his ribs, felt the weight of responsibility that came from being guardian to 3 remarkable children who'd already lost too much. All right, but we do this my way. You 3 stay with my legal team at all times. You don't talk to media without approval. You don't engage with United's lawyers directly. You're witnesses and victims, not combatants, understood? 3 simultaneous nods. And boys, if this gets too hard, if the stress becomes too much, if any of you need to step back, we won't. Jordan's voice was certain, final. Our parents died fighting for clean water access in developing nations. They died trying to make the world better. If we step back from this fight, from justice, from accountability, from preventing this from happening to other people, then we dishonor everything they taught us. Marcus pulled them into a hug, careful of his injuries, careful of their small bodies that carried weight no child should bear, felt them press against him with the particular desperation of people who'd learned that safety was provisional, and love was finite. And the only guaranteed thing was that you fought for what mattered. Your parents would be so proud. I'm so proud. But I need you to promise me something. If United comes after you, if they try to intimidate you or threaten you or make you feel unsafe, you tell me immediately, not tomorrow, not when it's convenient, immediately. We promise. Inspector Rodriguez had been making calls. Now she approached with an expression that meant new developments. Mr. Coleman, I just spoke with my director. Given the high-profile nature of this case, we're expediting the investigation. We'll have preliminary findings by tomorrow afternoon. We're also coordinating with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. This is bigger than airline policy. This is systemic discrimination with potential RICO implications if we can prove conspiracy. RICO? Lawrence looked intrigued. You think there's organized criminal activity? Systematic discrimination enabled by corporate policy, protected through threats and retaliation, concealed through sealed settlements. If that's not racketeering, I don't know what is. And if we can prove Kevin Palmer and Greg Ashford were working together to suppress complaints while profiting from discriminatory policies, that's conspiracy. That's federal prison time. Marcus felt something shift. This wasn't just about corporate accountability anymore. This was about criminal prosecution, about sending a message that discrimination had consequences beyond settlements and policy changes. How strong is your case? With Evan's testimony, with the internal emails, with 17 documented victims willing to break their NDAs and testify? It's strong, very strong. United's executives are about to learn that covering up civil rights violations doesn't just cost money, it costs freedom. The sun was setting over LAX. Marcus could see it through the aircraft windows, Los Angeles turning golden, planes landing and departing in their endless ballet. The ordinary machinery of modern travel continuing while inside this grounded 737. The extraordinary machinery of justice was just beginning to turn. His phone rang, not a text, an actual call, from a number he didn't recognize, but the area code suggested Chicago, United's headquarters. He answered. Put it on speaker so everyone could hear. The voice on the other end was smooth, professional, carrying the particular tone of someone who'd made a career of negotiating difficult situations. Mr. Coleman, this is Richard Zhao, General Counsel for United Airlines. I believe we met briefly earlier. I'm calling to discuss a potential resolution to today's unfortunate incident. I'm listening. United would like to offer you $75 million to settle all claims arising from today's events. Full confidentiality agreement. Admission of no wrongdoing. Complete release of liability. We believe this is a generous offer that reflects the seriousness with which we take your concerns. Marcus looked at the boys, at Inspector Rodriguez, at Lawrence, at Evan standing there having just sacrificed his job security for the truth. Mr. Zhao, I'm going to decline your offer. Silence. Then carefully. Mr. Coleman, $75 million is a substantial sum. I'm not sure you understand. I understand perfectly. You're trying to buy my silence, trying to make this about money instead of justice, trying to seal the evidence and protect the executives who enabled systematic discrimination. And Mr. Zhao, I don't need your $75 million. I need your company to stop discriminating against passengers. I need the executives who created policies targeting people of color to be held accountable. I need transformation, not transaction. Mr. Coleman, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Here's my counteroffer. United cooperates fully with the federal investigation. You fire Diane Ashford, Captain Roland Thatcher, Kevin Palmer, and Greg Ashford effective immediately. You void all discrimination-related NDAs and allow victims to participate in a class action. You implement third-party oversight of all passenger complaint procedures. You establish a victims' compensation fund administered by independent trustees. And you present a comprehensive anti-discrimination policy to shareholders for approval at Friday's emergency meeting. Friday? Mr. Coleman, there's no emergency meeting scheduled. There will be. I'm calling it. As the holder of 14.7% of outstanding shares, I have that right when I believe management has engaged in conduct materially threatening shareholder value, which this absolutely has. Your stock is down 9%, it's going to drop further. And when the federal investigation goes public tomorrow, when the class action gets filed Thursday, when shareholders realize the company faces billions in liability for systematic civil rights violations, You're going to wish you'd accepted my terms. Richard's voice went cold. Mr. Coleman, I don't respond well to threats. That's not a threat, Mr. Zhao. It's a forecast, based on evidence, based on federal investigation, based on documented patterns of discrimination that your company not only enabled but actively protected. You have until tomorrow morning to respond to my offer. After that, we move forward with litigation and shareholder action and federal cooperation. Your choice. Marcus ended the call, looked at the assembled witnesses to this moment. Inspector Rodriguez with her federal authority, Lawrence with his legal expertise, Evan with his moral courage, 3 8-year-old boys with their remarkable resilience. That's how you start a war, not with violence, not with emotion, with evidence, leverage, and the absolute certainty that justice isn't negotiable.